Do you ever go into your car, get in, sit down, turn it on, and then you proceed to crank up the jams again and again and again, and the sound that comes out makes your face make this face? Well, that's no good. You might have some bad tweeters. Well, let's fix that for cheap. Well, what's a tweeter? They're like a little speaker that's in your car. Well, some cars. Check your manual, see if you have one and where it's located. Mine's in this little compartment here. You just pop it off. Try not to break anything on your car. But yeah, it's a little speaker that lives inside here. And look at him. He's tiny. Now, before you start taking your car apart like you see me doing here, you might want to verify it's your tweeter that's going bad. Turn your volume up and stick your head right next to it. If it's got an ear-splitting top-end sound, that's probably it. At least that's what it is in my case. Here's what it sounds like when it was out. That was rough, right? Anyways, getting this thing out, there's just 2 screws holding it in on a bracket. You might have something similar. And I had to undo the white wiring harness. It just pushed out. Now there's another white wiring harness for the door. Do not touch that. Leave it alone. And there it is out. You have it, a little speaker. Got 2 wires on it with the harness. So in order to be able to easily connect it back to the car, I'm just going to clip these wires off of here and leave the harness and reuse it so I can just reconnect it easily and not have to worry about doing anything fancy in the car. So I'm clipping them off here with some wire strippers, and I'm going to strip back those wires so I can take and reuse and reconnect that to my new speaker and easily stick it back in the car. Speaking of that new speaker, now I'm super cheap, so I decided to try to salvage this speaker out of an old set of TV speakers that I removed from an old LCD TV. Now it's an enclosed speaker that is used to power all the sound out of the TV, and it seemed to be about the same size as my tweeter, but it's enclosed, so we gotta bust it open. So here's me tearing apart the enclosure to get the speaker out. Now, why am I doing this? Mostly because I'm cheap. I had these laying around and I wanted to see if it would work. If you are going to replace your tweeters, you can just go online, look up what size they are, use any automotive website to get the right size, and you could purchase them anywhere. And they're very relatively inexpensive. I mean, you can always buy way expensive stuff if you want to, but for the most part, for a tiny speaker, it's pretty cheap. So if you want to do this, just do that if it's easy enough for you. So you can see me here tearing apart this enclosure using all manner of tools. This was actually kind of fun, breaking something and being able to reuse it again. And once I pulled it out, here is the little speaker itself. Once I cut it free, and it ended up being a pretty dang good size to replace mine. So before putting this back in the car, I'm reconnecting that factory harness by way of soldering the wires together. Now, if you don't have a soldering gun or a soldering iron or whatever, you could probably use wire nuts. You could, at the very least, use electrical tape, but that's not going to hold up very well with vibrations of the car. So soldering is what I would recommend. Here I'm putting heat shrink tubing on, and yes, I used the tiniest amount. Yet again, too cheap. This time it was just not good. Make sure you cut your heat shrink tubing longer. So using a heating gun and getting those connections all tightened up so they don't rattle loose. Now this speaker has a magnetic back, so it literally just sticks on there. It could stay on there by itself. It's so strong, but just to secure it, and because the bracket that originally it came with would not fit the new speaker size, you got to improvise a little bit. So I just took some baling wire, bent it into a circle as you see here, and just ran the screws in and wrapped those around the screws to secure it. And I'm just using some needle nose pliers to snug up those wires on there to make it a little tighter. I trust that magnet, but I like it to be overprotected. And here you go. Here's the zoom in of the wires on there, holding it in place. Just don't drop one of those screws down your door, or you'll have to take it off to get it. And now the last part, just putting that black plastic cover back on, line up the pins, push it in. It should be pretty easy. Keep in mind, you do have two sides of your car, so you want to do this 2 times for both speakers. And you don't see me doing that in this video. You also don't see me testing the speakers back out, but just imagine the opposite of the sound you heard from the bad one. A more full, balanced sound that makes you not want to punch everything. And that's it. Go listen to some music, guys.